acoustic element as our musical guest for today. That's exactly right. As you've already been hearing, Acoustic Element builds their sound around the nylon string guitar and features a heavy Latin vibe. They're best known for reinventing popular songs by artists like the Beatles, Santana, the Eagles, and others, while also staying true to Latin and jazz standards. Their first selection today is Sway by Pablo Beltran Ruiz. Please welcome them. Thank you. I love hearing that piece so much. And also, I would again reiterate, the name of the song is Sway. I think the title just perfectly encapsulates the emotion and the feeling that it evokes whenever I hear it. Thank you. Can I invite again folks to turn their devices onto silent? Thank you so much. Right. Each week, we read the Ethical Education for Youth core values as a way to bring us together and to remind us of our shared values and commitments. Today, Rush Williams won a rock, paper, scissors tournament to be able to be the core values reader. Please welcome up Rush Williams.
Every person is important and unique. Every person deserves to be treated fairly and kindly. I can learn from everyone. I am a part of this earth. I cherish it and all the life upon it. I learn from the world around me by using my senses, mind, and feelings. I am a member of the world community, which depends on the cooperation of all people for peace and justice. I can learn from the past to build for the future. I am free to Christians. I am free to choose what I believe. I accept responsibility for my choices and actions. I strive to live my values.
Great job as always, Rush. All right, young people, it's time to head downstairs and do something amazing. The Youth Education Program is available to all children, and it provides a robust ethical education. So I'll let you know that not all of our Sikh students are up here today. The coming of age and youth group students are actually doing some community service down in the kitchen as well. It is now time for opening words, when we get to learn more about our fellow community members and their interests and passions. It's also an opportunity to deepen our connections with one another. Please join me in welcoming Dan Overman, who is the chair of the Stewardship Committee.
Good morning, everyone. Again, my name is Dan Overman, and my pronouns are he and him. You know, today is a bit of a first because typically the ministry leader delivers the Pledge Sunday platform. Since we are in between ministry leaders, the Stewardship Task Force agreed to make the presentation today. There will be 4 presenters. Actually, we thought we'd lump them all together, and then we decided, no, let's retain our normal format. But what we did do is redistribute the time each is allotted. So each is around 7 or 8 minutes, so we stay within the overall boundaries of our normal platform. So today, I'm going to start by addressing the elephant in the room. What's that, you might be wondering? It's our American cultural discomfort with talking about money and asking for money. Even though I've learned to refrain money requests from all sources, including those of the Ethical Society, there remains just this little tinge of discomfort. And I suspect that I'm not alone. Perhaps like me, you ask yourself, why should there be any discomfort at all? After all, it's not as if it's a surprise that it takes money to run a nonprofit. It's a pretty well-known fact. Typically, I think where I get my discomfort comes from narratives that accompany money requests that are so well crafted that it arises suspicion in my mind, and I'm wondering if they're really not telling me the message, Dan, are you not enlightened enough to see the value of our cause and the wisdom of giving us money? You know, that kind of upsets me when I hear that. But though it's probably unfair to stereotype all of them, it still kind of makes me uncomfortable. To avoid this, I found a process, and I call it the investment rationale. So the request actually becomes less about money and more about balancing two fundamental criteria. How much discretionary income do I have? And how much value does the organization going to be able to provide for me personally, as well as my community and the world at large? I use 3 tools for the assessment of value, and that has to do with the institution's underlying values, the infrastructure of the institution, and the amount of hope they can generate. So I start with this question: in what kind of world do I wish to live? And the answer for me is, it's a world characterized by people supporting and actively practicing the ethical society's core values. A few minutes ago, you heard this recitation of the core values, so I'm not going to repeat them here. However, I will share a few sentiments about the one that I believe to be the most impactful and influential, and that's kindness. Kindness of thought, kindness of word, kindness of deed, and kindness of overall demeanor. Couple that value of kindness with one of ethical society's most valuable yet unappreciated precepts, and the result emerges like this. Apply the value of kindness with a focus that elicits the best in the spirit of others, and it will elicit the best in yours. Imagine what an incredible outcome this is the potential to create. Unbelievable. So that's the kind of world in which I choose to live. The second core value assessment comes from infrastructure. An organizational infrastructure gathers its importance because it's the vehicle needed to produce the conditions and events upon which the values can be communicated, practiced, and implemented. Currently, the infrastructure here is comprised of 42 committees, task force, teams, and activity groups. This, of course, is way too many to present today, so I'm just going to cite a few to give you a sense of the vibrancy. Weekly Sunday forums like we had just this morning. Weekly Sunday platforms like this one, where there are guest speakers and guest musicians. Weekly youth group education programs, of which there are 3, one for the elementary school, one for the middle schoolers, and one for the high schoolers. Weekly newsletters. Have you ever really taken a look at the newsletter? This is a lot of work. This takes some effort to produce. And of course, the weekly post-platform social coffee hour and monthly luncheons, all supported by a combination of staff and volunteers. I suspect that your reaction is similar to mine. Wow, this is a vibrant place. So, and finally, the third assessment component is hope. That may seem a little strange, but let me explain. It appears to me that the character content of our current president and his messaging has managed to elicit the mean-spirited side of humanity. And even more, it has provided tacit approval for it. The result, a behavioral spiral, a behavioral downward spiral. So the importance of hope is that it provides a hedge against vulnerability of shifting from disappointment to despair, and in some extreme cases, depression. Humans must find sources to overcome the potential downward spirals of life. So hope is very important. In summary, why do I support the society? I choose to invest in kindness, infrastructure, and hope, in a place to experience inspiration, education, opportunities for improving social relationships, as well as to provide a safe place for all of us to find our pathway, not just to our authentic selves, but to our best selves. A sort of incubator for traveling on the road to joy. At the end of the day, there are just 2 profoundly simple questions that count the most, and those of us who are over 75 appreciate these even more. How much joy do I have in my life? How much joy have I brought to others? There's one more collateral benefit I'd like to pass on, and it seems self-evident, yet it's easily overlooked. As a group of 300 plus people, we have much greater capacity to impact our immediate environment and world when acting together rather than solo. So I'll end with just a bit of a surprise announcement. I'm going to wait for everybody to get on the edge of their seat. Now, come on. I am not going to ask you for money. Well, not directly. My request is that you take some time to make your own assessment of the Ethical Society's value to you personally, then respond accordingly with whatever your discretionary income permits. It's an investment decision in well-being that only you can make, and whatever you decide, it will be respected. Thank you in advance for all your consideration for working with us in keeping this place sustainable.
Thank you, Dan. If you are a member and you would like to give opening words, we will happily get you on the schedule. You can contact Carol Beer, who is the Platform Speakers Chair, Claire Minnis, one of our executive directors, or send an email to the Platform Speakers team. I hope that you will take advantage of the opportunity to share about yourself in this community. We're going to welcome back Acoustic Element. They're going to perform their second selection, Love of My Life, by Carlos Santana.
Just want to say good morning, everyone. Thank you for having us. This is a wonderful building to play music in. I will just start with that. The acoustics in here are wonderful. It's a wonderful way to start this morning. So thank you for having us back. We're going to do a selection by Carlos Santana. This is called Love of My Life.
was incredible. Right? Oh my goodness. Before our main address, we'd like to take a moment to empty our minds, relax our bodies, and to take some deep, mindful breaths. Please join me for 1 minute of calm breathing. Thank you. Our platform address today features our Stewardship Task Force, talking with us about pledging, sustainability, and stewardship. The Stewardship Task Force is comprised of Ethical Society members Dan Overman, Matthew Heil, Mary Ann Perkins, and Claude Bernard. We've already heard from Dan, but he gets an introduction too. So Dan Overman is a native St. Louisian, and he grew up in the northwest portion of the city of St. Louis in the Walnut Park West neighborhood. After 50 years, he is retiring from his architectural practice this year. I know, right? He's been a member of the Ethical Society for 27 years, and he has served on the board as well as a member of multiple committees and teams. And he is currently the chair of the Lay Leadership Development Committee as well as the Stewardship Task Force. Claude Bernard was raised in the ethical movement. He graduated from the Long Island Ethical Society Sunday School in 1964, and he has been a member of this society since 1991. Matthew Heil has been a member of this society for over 40 years. He has served in a wide variety of roles over those years, and he is currently the Society's president-elect. And Mary Ann Perkins became a member of the Ethical Society in 2023. She is currently serving on the Society's Board of Trustees. So each one of these presenters will share their perspective related to different aspects of pledging, sustainability, and stewardship, as well as the linkages that these have with the Ethical Society of St. Louis's core values and programs. Dan has already contributed, but we're going to hear from the other three members in the following order: Matthew, and then Mary Ann, and then Claude. Please welcome them to the stage.
Good morning. My name is Matthew Heil. My pronouns are he and him. And I'm going to save you some pixels. I see some people taking pictures of all of the slides. This QR code will take you to the slideshow on our website. So you don't need to take pictures. Save a few pixels. Okay. You've heard from Dan, and now for the exciting stuff. Oops, wait, that's not quite right. Let's take care of that. So we've made this comprehensible. While I talk, I want you to keep these points in mind, and actually while we all talk. Our pledging lack and low levels of pledging is a systemic problem. It is not an individual problem. We never deny membership to anyone based on their income or pledging, but each member gets to choose their pledge amount based on their particular specific situations. We have a number of goals for this. All right, my curricular works. To cover our personnel costs with current member pledging, to pay our staff equitably, and to include systematic increases when we do budget planning. Now, you will hear a couple of terms when people talk about pledging. You'll hear pledging units or giving units, and you'll hear members and what's the difference between the two. Giving units are really households. Households may have one or two people, but we think of them together. But all of the statistics and all of the numbers that we use and present are based on individual members and not on pledging units. Now, pledging accounted for less than half of our income in 2024. Every $6 of our pledges, can you all see that pointer? Yeah. Okay. So our personnel costs are 60% of our budget. All the personnel costs for everything have been lumped in there so that we don't include personnel costs in any of the others. So how are we doing covering personnel costs? Not very well. So if you look over here, our current year, we are covering 79% of our personnel costs. This is the lowest percentage that has been in over 20 years. Not a very positive trend. People say, well, it's because we've added more staff. Well, the staff costs are relatively stable related to positions. Amy and Nancy's departures have been balanced by the addition of Rachel and Claire. But we have increased compensation for our staff to pay them equitably and in line with local values. But inflation is not our friend. So if you look at this, we have fallen well behind what we should have based on inflation. So you can see here there's a huge gap from where we are now to where we would have been based on the inflation figures. In fact, our personnel budget would be $100,000 larger than it is today. So that explains our budget, but what about pledging? Well, the good news is that our pledges are up. Our average pledge rose last year after declining or staying the same for the previous couple of years, and it's currently higher than any of the last time in the last 20 years. So that's great news. That's that red line up there. And I also am able to announce that all of the board and the task force members have already done their pledge this year, so they've already added to the total for what's going on. However, the average increase is due to a generosity of a few members. So the bad news is that there has been little change in the median pledge, which is this blue line. Oops, a second mouse, hang on. The blue line is the median value. Now, what's the median? The median is a value at which half of the pledges are below it and half of the pledges are above it. And given the distribution of our pledges, the lumpiness of that distribution, a median is a better way to think about an average than the traditional mean. And if you see here that blue line, it has not really changed appreciably in the last 20 years. It's been pretty stable. But inflation adjusted, the median should be $410 higher. That's over $1,000 a year is what we would expect based on inflation for the median, for where half the people are pledging below that and half are pledging above. We are well behind that. Half of our members here in this point here are pledging less than half of the sustaining pledge level. Did different groups pledge differently? Yes. So this slide talks about, has divided the membership into member length cohorts. Starting on the left, 1 to 2 years, on the right, 31 plus years, okay? What's shown is the number, the percentage, that's the line, and the average pledge. Also shown are the median, the average, and the sustaining pledge levels. Sustaining, average, and median. On average, longer-term members pay close to or above the sustaining level pledge. So they're up here. Newer members give substantially less. They're down here, all below the median pledge level. But there are a variety of reasons for this. For example, newer members are likely to be younger and have have less disposable income. But as I said before, this is a systemic problem and not an individual problem. So what were members' responses last year when we asked for increasing pledges? Well, 57% increased their pledge. By something, and 20% increased it by 40% or more. Those are nice figures. However, on the other side, we have 43% who either reduced their pledge or gave the same amount. This year's experimental match program that Claude will be talking about is an attempt to increase pledging among members who pledge less than that sustaining level. One of the things that I missed in talking about the sustaining level is, where does that come from? That comes from dividing the budget, the personnel budget, by the number of pledging members. Okay, so if we each spent that much money, that would cover our entire personnel budget. That's where we got the sustaining level. So that's a lot of data. Well, I'm sure it was all perfectly understandable. Okay, and we know there will be a lot of questions, and we look forward to answering them. We have a forum next Sunday. You can write to us at stewardship@ethicalstl.org, and the slides are available on the member page, and you can use the QR code to get there. So that is the understandable part of the data. And now I will turn the platform over to Marianne.
Good morning, everybody. I'm really pleased to be here today. As a member of the Stewardship Task Force, I've had many opportunities lately to reflect on what ethical society membership means to me. And to share a little bit about that, I'll have to start with where I'm coming from. I got married at age 20, and as part of that ceremony, following in the footsteps of 5 generations of my forebears, I knelt at an altar and swore to give my time, talents, and everything that I had to build the kingdom of God on earth. Those weren't hollow words. My whole life, I'd seen these sacrifices modeled for me by my parents and church community. Day to day, that meant obediently submitting to church authorities. If you doubted them or their teachings, then you prayed for greater faith, and you acted as if you didn't doubt at all. People who did not obey well enough lost standing in the community. As you might imagine, such an upbringing was anathema to healthy boundaries, to consent, to individual freedom, and to self-respect. But this is the religious paradigm I inherited. I had no ability at the time to name it, much less to question it or to imagine alternatives. During my early adulthood, I had a lot of experiences that eventually led me to critically examine the impact of church membership in my life. And as I did, I grew increasingly determined that my children would have a different future. I left that church in 2008 while they were still little. At first, I looked around for a new church home, but my heart wasn't really in it. I knew about the ethical society, and I loved the core values, but I kept my distance. The truth was that I needed time. I needed to learn to trust myself. I needed to figure out what boundaries are. I needed to build self-compassion and self-respect. And I did. I gained confidence and eventually adjusted to having no church at all. Then in the fall of 2021, my daughter asked me if she could join the Ethical Society youth group. I took a deep breath, signed her up, and hoped it would be fine for her. She wasn't driving yet, so I began bringing her on Sundays. My attendance at Platform, initially nothing more than a way to pass the time during her meetings, began to mean something to me. I appreciated what this community reliably provided: thought-provoking and inspiring platform addresses, delightful music, fidelity to the core values, solidarity with like-minded people, and the occasional conversation with someone truly extraordinary over coffee or lunch after the meeting, and opportunities for community service. In 2022, I began attending the Religious Transition Group, a support group for people who have experienced a significant alteration in their beliefs. This was a form of help I didn't know existed, that I didn't know I needed. So now I have a confession. Even though I was receiving so much from the Ethical Society, I hadn't donated anything, and I wasn't interested in membership. But then two things happened. The first thing happened in May 2022. The leader at that time, James Croft, gave a platform address about the future. It's worth listening to, but I warn you, it is alarming. I am still alarmed by it. With a few simple charts and trend lines, he showed how ethical societies die. As I listened to his analysis and recommendations for our survival, I realized for the first time that this society and everything I valued about it was vulnerable to extinction. Up to that point, I never thought much about how all of this building, institution, and community, how it all got here and what kept it going. I had only the vaguest inkling that past generations built and handed it down to us. And yet I was, and I am, truly thankful that they did. I'm thankful for everyone past and everyone present who continues to shepherd this society into the future. And I hope generations from now that this society will still be here for them. Gratitude and hope, as well as the knowledge that I share responsibility towards those who will come after me, shifted my thinking. I felt called to do my part, and I hope you feel called too. I began using the QR code to donate each time I attended a meeting. Then the second thing happened. Midway through 2022, the religious transition group disbanded when the leader of the group left. For 6 months, I missed having those meetings, and I hoped that the society would get them going again. They didn't. Eventually, I realized this group would only get started again if I restarted it. And as it happens, leading a group is a benefit of membership. But I was not a member. I liked the society. I was even making donations, but I still resisted joining. I'm not totally sure why. I think maybe, even though I had come a long way from the church I was raised in, I was still living in its shadow. I still felt spooked by that paradigm. But more and more, I knew I had outgrown that fear. Trusting myself felt better than letting fear hold me back. So I applied and I became a member 2 years ago. I revived the religious transition group shortly thereafter, and it's still going strong. Facilitating those peer support meetings is a rich and rewarding experience. I'm often struck by the courage of the participants. They teach, inspire, and uplift me. Facilitating that group has made me more empathetic and a more thoughtful listener. It has deepened my respect for and appreciation of our human capacity for change and growth. I'm stronger because I chose to be a member, and I hope that my membership and presence here is building a stronger ethical society for the future. How about you? Whether you're a member or not, I hope you benefit from your presence here in ways that matter to you. If you are a member, I hope membership truly enriches your life. And I hope that each of us are doing our part to strengthen this society for ourselves and for others. What we do is up to us, but we should ask what our actions create for future generations. What kind of ancestors are we for them? Let's be good ancestors so that future generations will inherit a strong society from us. May we all do our part to sustain and grow the ethical society for our benefit now and as our gift to the future. Thank you.
Wow, Marianne, thank you. That was fabulous. So I have to follow that. So, Crystal mentioned that I attended the Long Island Society Sunday School. What she didn't say, because I didn't tell her, is that when I graduated, I swore I would never return. At age 14, I did not see the point. My opinion started to change about 15 years later when my father died. We had his memorial at the Long Island Society. Having a place where his life could be honored and seeing all the people who knew him and who cared for him made me begin to appreciate the importance of community. I moved to St. Louis in 1991, and I found myself suddenly single, and newly single and alone. When I heard from my mother that there was a thriving ethical society here, at least that's what she'd heard in Long Island, it was the most natural thing in the world to join. I found a community, a group of people who support each other through the stages of life and who help in our striving to live our values. And I found here not only great friends, but also my future wife, Joan Walker, who I met at an ethical singles event and then connected really for the first time with at a ethical society retreat. This is a place that is very important to me, and I like to focus on that importance and that commitment when pledge time comes around. So I want to talk about two features of this year's pledge campaign that are different from in the past. One small change and one big one. The small change is we didn't choose a theme this year for this year's campaign. Some informal polling suggested that the theme made a little difference in people's pledging. In fact, if you're like me, you may have found that you never really remembered what the theme was when it came time to pledge, and you certainly couldn't remember what the theme had been in the previous year. So, in an initial search for a memorable theme, I did suggest the classic, "I upped my pledge, up yours." For some reason, that was voted down. But the key idea remains, you know, it takes money to run this place, as you've heard, and to provide all the wonderful things that people really feel strongly about, to pay our staff to run our programs, to keep up our building. As you've heard, it costs $1,600 per pledging member per year just to pay our staff, which is about 60% of our total costs. For a long time, pledging did cover staff costs, but over the last 5 years, we've dropped steadily to under 80% of those costs. This is a problem for our society, and it will take all of us to solve it. We're calling that amount, $1,600 per person per year, the sustaining level. About 3/4 of our members currently give less than that level. The 1/4 who give more than that level, as Matthew showed, make up some of the funding shortfall, but far from all. This situation is concerning for our long-term future. Now, of course, many members whose pledges are below the sustaining level are giving as much as they can, and that's fine, that's great. There's no minimum pledge requirement. We want to welcome everyone, regardless of their ability to pledge. However, we believe that some of those who give less than the sustaining level could give more, but either haven't known about our needs, the financial needs of the society, or they haven't yet felt a strong enough commitment to this place. So that brings me to the big change in this year's pledge campaign. We've instituted a matching gift program. We want to encourage people that are currently giving less than the sustaining level to raise their pledges, if they can, closer to or even above $1,600 per person per year. We have a matching pool of money of more than $50,000 that we will use to match, one-for-one, pledge increases by anyone currently giving under that sustaining level. In addition, the entire amount of pledges of new members will be matched 100%. And here, by new members, I mean those who joined in the current fiscal year, 2024 to 25. So one question you might have is, where did this money for the matches come from? And it's interesting. When we were planning the program, we decided to get some feedback from some long-term committed members to see if they thought it was a good idea to have this matching program and how we should structure it. To our surprise, several of those members that we contacted immediately committed, without even being asked, to large contributions to the matching pool. That's amazing. We had originally hoped for $40,000 for the pool, but we had more than $50,000 pledged, before we could even start asking. This is indicative of the kind of commitment and generosity that we find among our long-term members. And we should feel quite proud, and I can tell that you do, quite proud of that. And to anyone who would have liked to contribute to this matching pool and didn't get a chance, we're hopefully going to do it again next year, assuming it's a success, and you'll have plenty of chance to contribute. We'll ask everybody if they want to contribute a one-time gift to a matching fund next year. This year, we'll continue matching pledges by new members and pledge increases by members currently pledging below the sustaining level until the end of the pledge campaign, which is April 13th, or the matching pool runs out, which I would love. I would love that we would use the entire amount, whichever occurs first. If we only use a fraction of the matching pool, then contributors to the pool will only be asked to give that fraction of their commitment. For example, let's say we use half of the matching pool, then someone who committed $1,000 to the matching pool will only be asked to give $500. And per the board's decision, that one-time $500 gift and the others like it will be earmarked to search for a new leader. It's a key thing that our society needs to do. So we're hoping several things from this matching gift program. We're hoping, obviously, to help raise much needed funds. We're hoping it will fix in everybody's mind this crucial number. It's kind of the footprint of everybody here. Footprint for staff only, not for the building, but for staff of the society that makes everything work, that makes everything possible. It's $1,600 per person per year. And we're hoping finally to show everyone that we are making an across-the-board community effort to solve our funding issues. And if people are convinced that we're all pulling together on this, then I think that everyone, regardless of how much they are giving now, will be encouraged to give as much as they possibly can. So I'll close with just 2 dates to keep in mind. These have been already mentioned, but I want to emphasize them. Next week, February 2nd, before platform, there'll be a forum on the pledge campaign where you can ask your questions. And after platform next week, there'll be a pledge lunch as an expression of our thanks for your contributions. And the other date is April 13th. That's the end of the pledge campaign. Please, if you're planning to pledge, please have your pledges in by then so the board can prepare an accurate budget for the 2025-26 fiscal year, which begins June 1st. Okay, thank you.
I'm a firm believer that donations are an act of love, and service is an act of love. Thank you, Stewardship Task Force, for your efforts for the Ethical Society. The Welcome Team will now take up a collection to support the Society. As you've heard, we rely on the generosity of members and friends, so please consider donating. If you don't have cash with you, you can donate at ethicalstl.org/donate, or to use the QR code on the screen, or become a pledging member. We appreciate anything you may be able to offer. If you're interested in joining the Ethical Society, or you would just like to know more about this place and this community, please visit the Visitors Connect table in the Becker Room after platform today. I have a few other announcements to share. This morning, there was a forum about disaffiliating with the AEO. There is a very comprehensive report in this week's weekly email blast, and I highly recommend reading it. And then returning back for a forum on February 23rd, where there'll be further discussion, and then a special members-only voting after platform on that same date, February 23rd. Additionally, last weekend, we packed 1,000 emergency contraception and safer sex supply kits. I want to offer many thanks to our 42 volunteers who turned out at a completely alternate location to help make the event a success. If you're interested in participating next time, our next kit making day will be here on March 2nd at 9:45. And then finally, I want to share one other point of news about what we can do whenever we're pulling our resources together. A month ago, Nathan Schrank, as a member of the UHST fundraising campaign, stood up here and shared about our affiliation with Uganda Humanist Schools. I am emphatically excited to report that we've raised over $50,000 this year to be able to send and support to those students in those schools. What that means is that we will continue existing scholarships for the 30 students and learners who will continue at Mustard Seed and Isaac Newton, that we will provide AfroPads for all menstruating students at all of those schools, that we're going to add at minimum six scholarships with first priority to students who are returning back for their A levels. So that would be senior 5 and senior 6 students at Isaac Newton. And then any remaining funds are going to support of greatest need. I'm always so inspired by the generosity of this community, and I want to thank you all for your contributions to that and to the Ethical Society as a whole. We'd love to keep you informed about all the amazing things that are happening here. Please check out the QR code for that weekly newsletter, check the Friends of Ethical Society Facebook page, or contact the relevant staff person or member. Okay, y'all, it's time for our final musical selection. Please welcome Acoustic Element back up to the stage for their final piece, Lambada by Los Caracas.
I just want to say thank you again for having us. We've had a wonderful morning sharing it with you. And if you'd like more information on Acoustic Element, we have a website called just acousticelement.com. We'd love to stay connected with you. Our final piece is a Brazilian piece called Lambada, also known as the Forbidden Dance.
what a rousing way to end our platform today. Thank you all for being here. I hope that you felt inspired and motivated to consider what the Ethical Society means to you and how you are a part of it, and that you're motivated to continue to speak to this community and the causes that you're passionate about. We're heading downstairs right this way for a coffee hour and conversation. I'll see you there, and I hope you have a great week.